Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, but above all, dear friends and colleagues, I am privileged to finally open the 32nd Alzheimer Europe Conference and welcome you to our first in-person conference after 2 years of virtual conferences. I am truly delighted that we have over 400 delegates who decided to join us for our annual conference in Bucharest, with another 100 or more than 120 joining us virtually. Some 40 countries will be represented at this year's meeting. What a pleasure is to finally meet up and to be able to chat and network whilst listening to the many interesting and insightful presentations which are on the program. This will be our first hybrid conference, and we will do our best to make the on-site and online participants and delegates as welcome as possible. We would therefore like to encourage on-site participants to download the conference apps, as this will allow you to ask questions to the various speakers during plenary and parallel sessions. That way, the moderators and chairpersons will be able to combine the questions received from our virtual delegates with those from the participants here in Bucharest. I am particularly pleased that Alzheimer Europe has returned to Bucharest for a second time after a very successful conference here in 2001, which I personally gladly remember. That was also the very first Alzheimer Europe conference in Central and Eastern European countries, followed by conferences in Prague 2004, Warsaw 2011, and Ljubljana in 2015. All too often, these countries are underrepresented in global and European policy, unfortunately with the results that we can see now on the broader measure. And also research developments in the dementia fields lag behind the average in these countries. And I am truly proud that Alzheimer Europe is aiming to rectify that situation and that we are successful in this topic. This year's conference is held under the motto Building Bridges, and we are hoping to build these bridges across European borders to ensure that good practices in dementia care and innovations in diagnosis and treatment are made equally available across the whole European continent. As our countries are slowly emerging and hopefully recovering from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, our continent has unfortunately also seen the return of war with the needless aggression and invasion of Ukraine by Russia. However disheartening such a situation is, I was personally encouraged by the welcome which especially neighboring countries such as Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, Hungary, Romania, or Baltic states, and not only them, but also all other states, gave to the millions of refugees fleeing the conflict, and how organizations were able to find ways of supporting people living with dementia and their caregivers among them. As a chairperson of Alzheimer Europe, I am happy that we were able to show some small signs of solidarity by welcoming the association Nezabudni as a new member of our pan-European family at our annual general meeting this morning. We will also hear from the founder of this association, Irina Shevchenko, during one of the plenary sessions on Wednesday. But the topic of building bridges is not just limited to overcoming geographical borders. Just as important is the collaboration and networking between all involved in providing care, diagnosis, and treatment to people with dementia and their carers. Over the next days, we will hear from a multidisciplinary and multinational group of experts and researchers, and I really look forward to learning from other countries and organizations and from all of you. The work of Alzheimer Europe would not be possible without an incredible group of people, partners and supporters. This richness and variety of experiences and knowledge make our annual conference quite an exceptional networking and learning opportunity. First of all, I want to highlight the fantastic contributions that people living with dementia make to our work, our projects, and our meetings and conferences. This year, our European Working Group of People with Dementia celebrated its 10th anniversary. Congratulations. And I could not be prouder about how their input and advice, as well as their freely shared experience and views, have fundamentally changed our organization for the better. And it is always on all our meetings that we learn something from them. I am delighted that 18 people with dementia will be with us in Bucharest and that a number of them will play an active part in our conference. Shortly, you will hear from Chris Roberts, the chairperson of our European Working Group of People with Dementia, and you will hear from other people with dementia as keynote speakers and participants in parallel sessions. As every year, I also wanted to single out the fantastic collaboration that Alzheimer Europe has developed with the INTERDEM network. This group of psychosocial researchers met earlier today, and you will have the opportunity to listen to Marjolein de Vugt, the chair of the group, of the network, not only group, in this opening ceremony, as well as a great number of their representatives who will share some of the priorities of the group and a number of projects they have coordinated. I am particularly pleased that the distinct group of early-stage researchers coordinated by INTERDEM members will be present here as well. They were the winners of the last year's Most Influential Twitter User Award at our virtual conference, and therefore received some free registrations and opportunity to present their interesting work at a special symposium organized by them. If you are interested in the use of new technologies in the care and support of people with dementia, this will be a great opportunity to discuss this important topic with the young and dynamic researchers from Distinct. We have also collaborated with the Alzheimer Europe Foundation, who decided to present an award for the best posters presented here in Bucharest, as well as online. We would like to encourage you to participate in helping us select the best posters. On the screens, you will find the QR codes that will lead you to the survey where you can pick the 5 posters which you found the most innovative and useful. Please use this opportunity and help us to choose the best one. We will also be innovating this year by presenting the 3 finalists for the Alzheimer Europe Anti-Stigma Award, which we selected from over 50 applications. You will learn more about each one of these interesting initiatives during our plenary sessions, and the winner of the award will be announced during the closing ceremony. The organization of our annual conference is truly a team effort. Let me therefore thank the members of the organizing and program committee who helped us in selecting the best abstracts to make this a really interesting and innovative event. Many thanks are also due to our corporate conference sponsors Biogen, Lilly, Pavey, and Roche for their incredible support. And as a final comment, please, allow me some very personal thoughts as well. This will be my last Alzheimer Europe conference as chairperson of the organizations. After incredible 14 years on the Alzheimer Europe board, of which I spent 6 years as chairperson, I thought it was time to leave my role to one of my colleagues, and I am absolutely delighted that this morning the annual meeting elected Rosário Cinque dos Reis from Portugal as my successor. I would like to I would like to thank her for taking over this role, to congratulate her, and to express my feeling that I am really very pleased that I have such a successor. Thank you, Rosario. Alzheimer Europe and the European Dementia Movement have continued to grow and expand over those past 14 years, and I am truly proud of our many achievements. As an organization, we have been successful in truly giving a voice to and integrating people with dementia in all our work. We have successfully campaigned to have dementia recognized as a European and national policy and research priority, and we have actively supported European research projects and collaborations. I was lucky to be supported by the great team of Alzheimer Europe, led by Jean-Georges, and my fantastic colleagues in the board and our national members that form Alzheimer Europe. I'm sure that the association will continue to grow and flourish under the new leadership, and I wish all of you a very, very successful and interactive conference. I'm sure the association under this leadership will grow and will be even more successful than we have been until now. I would like to wish you all the best, and thank you for your attention. And it is my pleasure and honor that I can forward the floor to Mrs. Dr. Diana-Loreta Păun, Presidential Advisor of Romania. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues and guests. It gives me a great pleasure to speak in the opening ceremony of the 32nd Alzheimer Europe Conference on behalf of the Presidential Administration of Romania. I take this opportunity to extend to our lecturers from abroad a very warm welcome. According to the WHO, dementia is the 7th leading cause of death and one of the major causes of disability and dependency among older people worldwide. Population aging phenomenon is occurring across the globe, and it is known that age is the strongest risk factor for dementia. In this context, thinking about the future, it is important to address dementia as a public health priority, to increase awareness and combat stigma, to support research and innovation. We are also living in the decade of healthy aging. Preventing dementia implies optimizing physical health by eating a healthy diet, being physically active, avoiding harmful behaviors such as smoking or harmful use of alcohol. Dementia has a significant social and economic impact. Again, according to the WHO, 50% of the global cost of dementia is attributed to informal care to family members. Digitalizations and new technological solutions can reduce this cost and can contribute to improving the quality of life and well-being for persons living with dementia, but also for their families. For the medical community, access to up-to-date information and skills development through lifelong learning is the key to improve the delivery of care and improve patients' outcomes. Professional medical associations facilitate the rapid transfer of innovation into practice across the physical borders of states. The motto of this year's conference is Building Bridges. The international cooperation in medicine supports the global health knowledge and promote health equity. Therefore, I see this scientific event as an opportune time to strengthen connections and to build bridges between professionals from all over the world to exchange ideas in the area of dementia. So, thank you for the invitation, and I wish you all fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your words. And we really appreciate that you are here with us. And I would like to invite our next speaker, Chris Roberts, Chairperson of the European Working Group of People with Dementia. The floor is yours.
We will miss you, Eva. Hello, everyone. Excuse my voice. I've got a chest infection at the moment. It's not COVID. I come from Wales in the UK, and I was diagnosed with vascular dementia, and then later on Alzheimer's disease too. I was already living with arthritis and COPD. My wife says I'm greedy. It's not a competition. But people say, you don't look like you have dementia. And then I say, you can't see my emphysema either. Not every illness is visible or obvious. And we need to remind people of that. We need to educate people, not get cross about it. Every illness has a beginning before an end. I'm honoured to be the current chair of the European Working Group People with Dementia, and I take great pleasure in welcoming you all to this, the 32nd Alzheimer's Europe Conference. And how fantastic to be live again, and not to be objects on a screen, to see people face to face. We all bring in to this conference our unique contributions, and that can only add to the expert knowledge of all. It is truly refreshing to see this being acknowledged, promoted, and fully involving people with and affected by dementia. We are experts by experience in our own right. Being involved, using our experience, not only helps you, but it helps us. We're more social. It helps us retain our skills. It builds confidence. And not just in us, it builds confidence in you to work with us. And more importantly, it allows our needs and our wants to be heard. So then we can help develop and promote services that we might need, not just now, but in the future too, and back in our own countries. I like to try and inspire everyone, living with dementia or not, to continue living their lives, to live as well as they can, for as long as they can, to concentrate on what they can do, not to worry about what they can't, to take every day one step at a time. And that's all any of us can do, isn't it? The best. When I hit an obstacle, my family, we try to find out what the real difficulty is, because there's always something behind the problem. And then we put a cognitive bridge in place, so I can overcome that difficulty. The same as we put ramps in for people with wheelchairs. And that brings me very nicely to the conference title this year, Building Bridges. We need to build bridges. We need to cognitively help people with dementia. We need to build bridges for everyone. Yes, I don't look like I have dementia, but I will reach a stage where my illness will become more debilitating than it is at the moment. And then you'll see it. And then it will sadly affect those around me more than myself. I will forget. My family and friends will not have that luxury. There's a silver lining in everything. But until then, I will be me. I will enjoy my life. I will live my life. I will continue doing whatever it is I do. And during this time, I will talk about my illness. I'll raise awareness. I'll challenge the stigma and the misconceptions about who I am and how I should live. People with dementia have the right to be involved in any and all work that is going on around us that will affect our lives. But it's about working together. Nothing about us without all of us. Involvement can take many forms: patient involvement, research, peer support, and advisory groups. But whilst this is encouraged and welcomed, a downside is that individuals are put forward as being representative of all people with dementia. This is neither correct nor fair and can add a huge stress and cause anxiety for people. I am only an expert in my dementia for the time that I have been diagnosed. And one way of overcoming this is the formation of working groups, advisory groups. You will gain consensus and a collective voice. Alzheimer Europe's working group of people with dementia, together with other national working groups, have demonstrated what people with dementia can contribute to, with support and assistance, to both professionals and to other peers receiving a similar diagnosis. The working group is celebrating its 10-year anniversary, as you heard before, and I give my thoughts to those who came before me and to those that can't be here anymore, and to my good friend Helen, who's recovering from a stroke at the moment. We have some new members here, I'm pleased to say, for the first time, and some have remained in place. And I am honoured to be able to work with and be the chair for them. They all are my friends. I hope you'll find the conference as informative as I always do. I always learn something. And now I'll go back to doing what I do best, not being a patient or a person living with dementia, but being part of another team, husband and wife. We do that much better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, for your fantastic presentation. And not only for that, I would like to thank you very much for our collaboration. And I have to admit that it has been always that I have learned something from you when we were discussing different topics, that your opinion was really of immense importance. So thank you very much. And our next distinguished speaker is Professor Marjolein de Vugt, current chairperson of the INTERDEM network. Of the INTERDEM network.
Thank you, Eva. Dear audience, colleagues and friends here in the conference room and at home. Building bridges, it's mentioned now several times, is a perfect theme, I think, for this conference. Now we can meet finally face-to-face after a long time of digital connections. And I brought a picture, I'm not sure if it can be shown on the screen, but it's a picture of the Sint-Servaas Bridge in the city of Maastricht, the city center where I work. And it's the oldest bridge in the Netherlands, and many people cross it every day when walking from the train station to the heart of the city. And it is taken for granted, this bridge that is there, and it will take us from one side of the Meuse to the other. And the Latin phrase for crossing of the Meuse, Mose Trajectum, became even the name of the city of Maastricht. But this bridge has a history, as every bridge, of building, collapsing, rebuilding with stone instead of wood, renovating several times. And it took time, resources, and perseverance to build this beautiful, sustainable bridge. But when it's there, it's self-evident. And this holds the same for building a bridge in terms of establishing a relationship. It takes time, resources, and perseverance to foster understanding and appreciation of the differences we have in background, in culture, in discipline. And in the last years, Alzheimer Europe and the INTERDEM network for psychosocial research have built this strong and sustainable bridge. And that was visible again this morning in a great INTERDEM Research Network event facilitated by Alzheimer Europe with over 80 participants presenting and discussing their work. And also this year, INTERDEM has several symposia that you can enjoy during the conference, including a wide range of topics such as diversity, technology, social health, and support of early career researchers. And this last topic is especially close to my heart because these young researchers are our future leaders in the field of dementia who can inspire and change the world. Conferences like Alzheimer Europe lay an important basis for this. And as a young researcher, you will never forget your first nerve-wracking presentation for an international audience. Discussing research in the coming days with everyone here, peer researchers, healthcare professionals, policymakers, people with dementia, family members and others, will help to deepen their work and put it in the right context and perspective. That is that although it is very nice to finally see your name in print on top of a fantastic publication that you worked so hard for, ultimately research is about changing the lives of people with dementia and their families. And that makes the Alzheimer Europe Conference so unique and inspiring, because it really highlights this perspective by including people with dementia and strengthen their voices. And fostering these intergenerational connections in dementia research will help to build a better future for people with dementia. INTERDEM stimulates these younger generations of research talents in the academy with over 200 members from various countries in Europe, and supports them in their pathway to senior positions in the field. And that's why it's also fantastic, Eva already mentioned it, that Alzheimer Europe supported a symposium of only young researchers from the Distinct Network that will present on the topic of technology and dementia in this conference. Another challenge for the coming years in the field of dementia research is to build strong bridges between research and practice, because this is key to sustainable implementation of research outcomes and innovations. Evidence-based interventions are implemented sporadically at best, among other things by a low implementation readiness of the interventions and various barriers in care practice. And that is what we call the implementation gap, and that fails to realize the intended and possible benefits for people with dementia and their carers for timely and accessible care and support. This was also one of the calls to action in our published 2019 INTERDEM manifesto, and it steered us as a network in new directions in the way we conduct our research in interdisciplinary collaborative networks by means of co-creation with field labs and with people with dementia at the steering wheel to drive these new innovations. INTERDEM has been able to be at the forefront of this development by collaborating with the European Working Group of People with Dementia in various research consortia, and this bridge will definitely help us to tackle the implementation gap. So to conclude, this Alzheimer Europe Conference will help to build new bridges between networks, generations, and between research and practice. It will take time, perseverance, and maintenance to make these bridges sustainable, but the ultimate aim is that when they are there, we will cross the bridge with the greatest self-evidence. Enjoy the conference. Thank you, Alzheimer Europe, for your support. Thank you all.
Thanks to you, Marjolein, not only for this presentation, but also for the long-term collaboration and for the fact that you have taken over INTERDEM network, for the further development from Mira Vernooy-Dassen, who has developed it, and from the founder, Esme Moniz-Cook. So we are really very, very happy that we collaborate, as I already said, with INTERDEM, and good luck also to this network. And our last but not least speaker is Professor Cătălina Tudose, Chairperson of Societatea, of Romanian Alzheimer's Society.
Thank you. So there has been passed more than 21 years since the 11th annual European Conference has been took place in Bucharest in June 2001. And we are very glad to host another edition after all this period. As a society, we have a long history. We have been set up in '92, and we are developing ourselves parallelly with a lot of events as changing the political system in our country, the European Union development, the Alzheimer Europe organization. So we are members since 1994, and I can't help myself not to mention names of people who have extraordinarily supported this part of Europe to become members of Alzheimer Europe and to develop at the level that we are now. And I mention the first presidents of Alzheimer Europe, Mr. Henk ten Haar and Jean Croquet, and also Professor Franz Barrow, Norrie Graham and Harry Caton, Mark Wortman, and I will stop. And from that time, I, Eva, and Jean-Georges were still survivors. So I take this opportunity to thank, I cannot mention all these people, but to thank Alzheimer Europe for the support and the guidance, and for all the information that we are receiving all the time, and for our involvement in projects, in research, in networking. The theme of the conference in 2001 was also building bridges, so but we have built bridges. And it's important to keep the bridges and to, as we are doing, to build another new bridges of different kinds and different levels. I want finally to stress on the specific aspect of this kind of conferences, because you are accustomed with this, but I want to stress that this unique structure in which there are involved not only medical professionals, as it used to happen in my country before, but also all the professionals that are involved in the care of dementia people, carers, but what is more and more important, people who are themselves suffering of the disease. This is something unique. Mrs. Loreta Păun, who is supporting very much our movement in our country, knows that is a very specific kind of conferences, because we are influenced by Alzheimer Europe, and we have inspired at our turn other colleagues as neurologists who are dealing with other chronic diseases. So coming back to the conference, I look at the program. It is really very, very nice program, and finally, I think we are a little bit late. I want to wish a lot of success to the conference. I'm sure that it will be a very successful one, and let's hope that we will continue to collaborate in this specific condition that we pass through, pandemic and other new conditions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cătălina, and I would like also to thank you for our really long-term collaboration within Alzheimer Europe and between our two organizations. I would like to thank all our speakers for their very valuable contributions. I think, and thank you very much, I think it was said everything that was necessary to be said in the beginning of the conference. Thank you for your wise words. And I think that we should remind us, as very much about building bridges was already said, that they're not far away from this part of Europe. There are still bridges being burnt, bombarded, and destroyed. And that building bridges is really important topic, because it is also about, not about buildings, but also about relations between people that will be needed also in the future. So I would like to thank you very much. And according to the script forwarded by Gladys, I think you kindly take the seats that are more comfortable, because I have the honor to welcome and introduce our first keynote speaker. It is a difficult task, if even possible, to introduce briefly and shortly Alexander Kurz. Because Alexander is professor of psychiatry, University of Munich and University Hospital. We know him as a founding member of Alzheimer Europe and board member of Alzheimer Europe. He is a lead of different European projects. But he is also, as we all, not all, but many of us know, a pianist who was accompanying choir, Alzheimer Germany choir during the opening ceremony in Berlin, as far as I remember. And he is also, his activities are really immense. But I just mentioned that he is a dangerous photographer, paparazzi from the first row, and you never are sure, etc., etc. But first of all, he is our dear friend, and I really look forward to your keynote lecture. You are most welcome, Alexander.
Well, thank you, Eva, for this very kind introduction. Thank you for your very nice words. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm very grateful to the team of Alzheimer Europe for inviting me to this conference and for giving me the opportunity, but also the difficult task to speak in this very prominent position, which is a bit unusual for me. The topic of my talk that was given to me by Jean-Georges a few months ago is tricky. Can I have this? Okay. The title is Promoting Good Dementia Care Through European Collaboration, and you will learn in a few minutes why I think this is a bit tricky. You may also notice that some of the speakers are playing around with bridges when preparing their talks. So did I, and you will hear several of the ideas that Eva and Marjolein have mentioned in my talk. We did not coordinate. It's just it's chance. Okay. So in my talk, I will not focus on all of Europe because this is far beyond my capability, but I will concentrate on the southeast region of Europe. And why is that? Number one, we are in the southeast of Europe. Number two, I have been involved in some projects, and I still am involved in some projects that are going on in the southeast region. But number three, and most importantly, I think that the dementia wave may hit here particularly hard. Why? The population will age more rapidly here than in other parts of Europe. For example, the predicted increase in life expectancy from birth in females will be well above European level in the countries that you see on the map with the darker shades, including Romania and Bulgaria. The same is true for males. So, as a consequence of this, the number of persons living with dementia will rise disproportionately in this part of Europe. Again, in the countries with the darker shades, the increase of persons living with dementia is above European level until the year 2050. And there is a problem here which is not known in other parts of Europe, and that is the care drain, the loss of skilled health workers, the outward migration. Again, Romania is one of the countries that is most heavily affected by the care drain. And something else, there's a youth drain. The emigration of young people from these countries to the West of obvious economic reasons. And this youth drain weakens the traditional familial support structures in the countries. So, countries here in the southeast region of Europe, they need to be well prepared to meet these challenges. But there are significant gaps and barriers. For example, regarding knowledge and skills, there is insufficient dementia-related knowledge and skills among health professionals. There is no proactive or planned or coordinated care here. The idea of person-centeredness is almost unknown, and there's a lot of polypharmacy going on just because there's nothing else. Regarding interventions and tools, non-pharmacological interventions are often not available. And there's almost no use of assistive technology here. Regarding services and structures, there's an overall low number of healthcare professionals because many of them have gone elsewhere. Some occupational groups are just lacking. For example, occupational therapists are not known in some of the countries here. Important services such as day centers are missing. There is poor carer support, if any. And, as we have heard before, dementia is not high on the political agenda yet. And there are some attitudes and traditions that are unfavorable. There is high stigma associated with dementia still. There are frequent misconceptions and prejudices. And there's a strong reliance on familial structures of care, although these structures are weakened, as I said, by the emigration of young people. So, bridges are needed to overcome these gaps and barriers. The bridges that can be built between partners, as Marjolein has mentioned, these bridges are extremely valuable and they have many benefits for the players, for those who are involved in the bridges. For example, they can share values and goals, for example, the person-centeredness or the idea of focusing on quality of life. They can have the common vision of a planned, coordinated and proactive dementia care. They can exchange good practices. They can adopt new skills and techniques, learn from one each other. And of course, European collaboration provides an access to European money. But do these collaborative projects, do they improve dementia care? Let's have a brief review of 22 project examples. The selection, I can tell you how the selection was made. I was asking the colleagues I know in the southeast of Europe, please tell me which European project have you been recently involved in, or are you involved in, that focus on the improvement of dementia care? Just tell me. So here is a selection of 22 of such projects with fantastic ideas, wonderful novelties, and we go briefly through them. On the map, you can always see the countries that are involved in these projects. So for example, there is one, you will hear about it at the conference at a later point. Here's a toolkit for family members, which is planned to improve communication. Very important, communication, fantastic idea. There's another one, very unique, a project that creates an e-learning course for informal, meaning family carers, to promote their transition from family carers to formal care, to professional carers, and to stimulate their integration into the labor market. Very unusual, very interesting. There is one project that strengthens the resilience, very modern topic, strengthens the resilience of informal caregivers through the use of social media and the creation of online support groups to stabilize and support family structures. Then there is one project that tries to improve the coping strategies of informal carers by introducing novel strategies of care. Here is one that promotes the social inclusion of persons with dementia by educating carers and professionals how to promote arts therapy. Also very important, very interesting, non-pharmacological intervention. Here's one, a very comprehensive project for joint actions on diagnosis, care coordination. Here's coordination for the first time. Creating dementia-friendly communities, so a very comprehensive project. Here's another one that uses modern mentoring techniques to train professional carers how to prevent their own burnout. Also a very contemporary concept, preventing burnout. And here's one that creates a massive open online course for adult and senior teachers, not for carers, not for people with dementia, but for teachers, to improve educational strategies and policies about dementia. We have heard before that education about dementia, improving knowledge, is something very important. And here's another study which tries to improve the digital skills of educators by jointly creating a Moodle course for medical students. The increasing role of information technology has been mentioned by Eva, I think. And here is a big study, a big project. You can see that 11 countries were involved in that one. It has developed and piloted an interdisciplinary e-learning program to provide a person-centered, holistic approach to dementia, to promote collaboration, and also to stimulate entrepreneurial activity in the field of dementia. As I mentioned, there are almost no day centers. So why are there no day centers? Because no one cares for a day center. So entrepreneurs could create day centers. They need to learn how to do it without going bankrupt, of course. And there's one a project that develops a smartphone application for supporting the management of behavioral problems, including meaningful activities and self-care. And there's one that uses serious games to provide social inclusion and cognitive stimulation. Here is an activity, interactive training platform based on videos to promote physical activity to be incorporated in the lives of caregivers and of people with dementia. And I think we are coming to the end now. There's a model of integrated care for professionals. Again, the idea of integrating care. This is interesting. A project that uses English songs for cognitive stimulation, for improving memory. There's another project that uses serious games for cognitive activation. Here is one that promotes the personal autonomy of people with dementia by directly promoting activities of daily living. Here is one very similar, comprehensive IT stimulation. Here is one that supports the idea of table tennis for people at risk of dementia to increase their motor and cognitive abilities. Recage is a project that you will hear about in the conference later. It is about special care units for people with dementia who have severe or pronounced behavioral problems. Here is one that combines assistive technology here, combines a nursing robot with a tablet computer to stimulate physical, cognitive, and social activity. And finally, here we have one of the very few studies that tries to create novel services in terms here of mobile memory teams that go into the families and provide a real life assessment and individualized care through home visits in collaboration with general physicians. So there's a huge amount of projects, of activities going on. You will have noticed that there is some overlap. Gaming is very popular. Using IT is very popular. So on the first position, there are projects that enhance knowledge and skills of professionals, of carers in the first line, probably because this is most close to the academic world and the most easier thing to do. Position 2 is developing intervention and tools, and there's not many studies that create innovative services, probably because this is the most difficult thing to do. But overall, there's a lot of activities going on, a lot of thought and effort going into there. But these projects, in a way, they are living on an island of projects, on the project island. They are isolated and they are short-lived for 2 or 3 years. And once the money goes away, the funding stops, these projects are doomed to drown in the sea of futility. So what we need here is additional bridges, and Marjolein meant those bridges to overcome the gap of implementation. We need bridges to bring the knowledge and experience that has been created on Project Island to the mainland of care, to ministries, to service providers, to our peers. This is bridging the implementation gap, and that's a problem in itself. Building these bridges requires a lot of timely, thoughtful, careful planning. Mira told me this morning that it should not be a knowledge translation, but implementation guide on the right. So what is the need that we are trying to address? What are the goals? Does a project want to change attitudes, actions, or budget allocation of a ministry, of another institution? What about the intervention? Is it novel? Does it have advantages? Is it feasible? Are there barriers? What about the costs? Usually as a researcher, as an academic person, you don't think of these things. But you need to think of them right from the beginning, because otherwise you will drown in the sea of futility, as I said before. And what about the target groups? People with dementia, carers, professionals, policymakers. All of these require very different strategies in order to implement. And building these bridges also require a smart way of delivery. The message needs to match the defined goals and the learner's preferences. The style needs to be clear, concise, continuous, compelling. The format, there's a selection of formats that we can think about: meetings, workshops, publications, presentations, policy briefs, probably a multimodal set of formats is the best thing to do. Then we can think of involving agents, stakeholders, opinion leaders, persons with dementia, carers, Alzheimer's organizations for promoting our idea. And then finally, implementation efforts need to be persistent, because one-off events will never make it. As we know, Rome has also not been built on a day. This is the final bridge that I'm going to show. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alexander, for your advice. Keynote lecture as the keynote lectures should be, because I think it is a new view on general things and new guide how to think about them. So thank you very much. And I can only say that our conference has successfully, greatly started. And I would like to invite you to work together in 5 sections this afternoon. And according to Gladys's script, I have also to invite you for a get-together for a reception at 6:30. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to all speakers, and see you in our sections.